Good afternoon. Welcome to Lisbon Law and Tech, the annual event offered by the Knowledge Institute of Abreu Advogados. Join this discussion and share your thoughts and ideas on social media. We had a great first day with two high-profile speakers, Roland Vogel from Codex Stanford and Mark Cohen from Legal Mosaic, discussing robo-lawyers, law techs, and the future of the legal profession. The host was my colleague Ricardo Henriques, partner with Abreu Advogados. Today's topic is legal innovation trends, and we are going to discuss how innovation is transforming the day-to-day work at law firms and legal departments. Matilde Mello Cabral, Chief Operating Officer at Abreu Advogados, will be the host of this session. Matilde, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Luis. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the second day of Lisbon Law and Tech. I'm honored to moderate such an exciting session that we have today. Those of you who know me know that I'm an enthusiast of everything that has to do with innovation and technology. With us today, we have three great guests and extraordinary speakers on everything that has to do with innovation and technology. Let me start by introducing them. We'll have the opportunity to learn and be inspired by Mary O'Carroll, Ben Allgrove, and Moray McLaren. Welcome to the three of you, and thank you very much for accepting our invitation today. So, Mary, what can I say about you? Mary O'Carroll is Ironclad's Chief Community Officer. Previously, she was the Director of Legal Operations at Google, as well as the president and one of the founders of the Legal Operations Consortium, CLOC, that I am very honored to be also a member. In her early career, she worked as the profitability manager for law firm Org, Herrican, and Sutcliffe, and previously was an investment banker and strategic management consultant. Mary is a passionate leader and a reference in everything that has to do with law and tech, always pushing forward a disruptive technology agenda and putting into work processes designed to change the future of the legal industry. Welcome, Mary, and many thanks for joining us today. With us today, also, we have Ben Allgrove, that is in London, and is a partner at Baker McKenzie. He's a much sought after copyright, privacy, AI, and wider technology legal expert with an emphasis on everything that has to do with digital media and intermediary platforms. Ben advises market-leading and also independent digital media and tech companies, at the same time that he is also the partner in charge of Baker McKenzie's Reinvent Innovation arm. A Rhodes Scholar, he has twice been recognized in the Lawyers Hot 100 list and has, along with being awarded E-Commerce Lawyer of the Year in the ILO Choice Client Awards. He is also recognized in the Chambers and Partners UK as a leading individual in TMT and media and entertainment, along many other things. Welcome, Ben, and many thanks for making the time to join us today. Our third,
lovely to be here.
Last but not the least, is my long and great friend, Moray McLaren. Moray has been advising law firms for more than 2 decades now. A lawyer by training, he completed an MBA in legal services before assisting one of the London's law firms on their global expansion. Today, he's one of the partners at Lexington Consultancy, where he advises the top independent law firms as they review their practice, focus, governance, remuneration, and ownership models. Moray also assists the global law firms as they enter new markets. Over recent years, his work has focused on continental Europe, Latin America, Africa, and India. He's a member of the Møller Institute at the University of Cambridge and an associate professor at IE Business School, ranked by the Economist as the best in continental Europe. He's a fellow of Harvard's Institute of Coaching, and he speaks and publishes widely on law firm strategy was the inaugural Chief of Strategy group of the IBA's Law Firm Management Committee. Many thanks to the three of you. we are very excited and looking forward to this discussion that we will have today. Moray, I understand that you have been interviewing clients around the world on these last few months and have some interesting ideas and topics to share with us, not only about the trends that you're seeing out there, but also on the client view on how law firms have been introducing them with their new technology platforms in the tech agenda. Is this right? Do you have this? Do you like to share this with us?
Yeah, thank you very much, Matilde. Not only have I been interviewing clients around the world, I've been interviewing Portuguese clients. So I'd like to make this as Portugal specific I can for the audience. But let me start by saying thank you for inviting me. I was very keen to do this for the special reason that both Luis and Matilde have helped me personally throughout my career. It was Luis that invited me to teach for the first time at on the Católica Global Law Program. And Matilde, you've helped me and given me some very good advice over the last 15, 20 years I've known you, and you were kind enough to help me design the Lawyers Management Program at IE Law School here in Madrid and to be one of the first students. So thank you so much for inviting me to be here. It's very, very special. Our topic today is trends in law and technology. Now, my original aim was to talk about all of the wonderful things we hear about in technology and to dust down my slides on the adoption of technology. Matilde, as you very kindly said, by way of introduction, I've spent the last 2 weeks interviewing clients, and I thought, what if I put aside my normal presentation? What if I share with you some of the things that I've been hearing? And I noticed that you're calling this event Lisbon Law and Tech for Bold Minds. So please forgive me if I'm going to be bold today. Please forgive me if I'm going to be controversial. After I say my piece, I will look to Mary and to Ben for the good news that we're hearing about technology. And apologies if this time, this year, I get to be the one that gives the bad news. I'm going to call this presentation, I've got 7 minutes, The Wizard of Oz and Why Clients Are Failing to Get the Benefits of Technology. It's either the clients are failing to get the benefits of technology or that law firms are not taking the opportunity. If we think of this in terms of a football match between Benfica and Porto, the goal is wide open and we're just waiting for that Portuguese law firm to step in and to score that winning goal. We'll start with the why and then we'll look at the what and the how. I interviewed Kenny Robertson. He's head of legal IP and data at the Royal Bank of Scotland. He's incredibly outspoken. It was Kenny that gave me the analogy of the Wizard of Oz. Now, Kenny and the other in-house lawyers are very, very clear about what their needs are. There's no doubt, there's no ambiguity about what they require. Firstly, it's about de-risking projects. Secondly, driving efficiencies. And thirdly, improving the customer experience. When we talk about de-risking projects, of course, it's about learning from other work that law firms do, understanding the clauses and understanding how to update and change those based on the risks that people have. Driving efficiencies, I'm not even going to say quicker, better, cheaper, because we understand the commercial pressure that clients are under and how they push that to law firms. Improving the customer experience. Let's not forget that Kenny and other in-house lawyers have their own internal clients, and they worry about the way that some of the external law firms are communicating and actually providing what's required by the clients. So there should be no doubt of why this is important to the clients. On the what this means, and Ben and Mary, apologies if I give you this list of what the in-house lawyers are looking for, because I'm sure you'll be able to answer this need more than I can. And what's exciting and interesting about the interviews is that everyone is telling me exactly the same. Onboarding clients, the typical facts and information that every law firm requires, know your client. Why is that so difficult and why does it take such a long time? Document assembly, 2 simple words, but if we could sort document assembly, that would solve maybe 70 or 80% of the frustrations that clients have. And in part of that, and a small part, document navigation. Now you have a definition, you've got to scroll down 30 pages, scroll back. So we're not even getting document assembly and navigation right. Workflow tools. Wouldn't it be good to know the stages a law firm is going through and all of the work they do and the delivery dates? We can talk about money later, if you like. And of course, what about the tech tools for those really volume-based work where you've got thousands of potential liabilities? We should all be using Luminance to do that or something similar. And we know that law firms are not, and we'll come back. Luminance is such a wonderful tool, but we're not using it at the moment, and I'd like to find out more about that. And really, the message to the law firms taking part today from the clients is that you might not know the huge amount of data you have, and it's data that you're currently not using in order to help communicate to your clients. So that's really the reason why Kenny says the Wizard of Oz. He says, you often get a tool from a law firm that says they use data. You open it up and you look behind it and you see an Excel spreadsheet. So Excel spreadsheet for many of the in-house lawyers does not really satisfy what we want in terms of technology. Okay, that was the why and the what. Let's talk about the how. And it's almost too simple to say this, but from the law firms I work with, I know that it's good to repeat this and good to say it again. This is how you do the technology thing right for law firms. The firstly, and I shouldn't need to say this, is taking a genuine interest in clients and being curious about clients and investing the time required to understand their business. How do you do that? You go and see them, you ask questions, and you listen. And I'm going to add the expression off the clock, okay? Secondly, I guess you get to earn trust. You get to follow their agenda, not your agenda. Let's not view clients as an ATM where they pay you and they're part of your billable hour targets for the years. Understand their industry, their organization, get to know them personally. What's their agenda? What's on their KPIs? And what will you help them get their annual bonus? How do you do that? You do it through getting to know them off the clock. Okay, I've said that twice. So you know where I'm going on that, no? And then maybe thirdly, you get to invest some resources. You get to get a team of people. You get to work with trial and error. You research and you develop the technology tools. Now, research and development is something that every business has. Every business invests in, but for the reasons we'll go into later, law firms struggle with that. The last one is true collaboration, when it's not me and the law firm and the client on the other side of the table and this tension around cost that we always have. It's really about lawyers, technologists, and project managers collaborating together. Now, the word collaboration from the client's perspective is difficult because they see often partners in the same firm don't collaborate amongst each other, let alone working together. And David Williams at Harvard always has this joke about the way law firms talk about non-lawyers. No? Doctors don't call bus drivers or train drivers non-doctors, but we do have to sort out what we mean by lawyers and non-lawyers and how lawyers can work much better with those business professionals. Now, conclusions. Why is this happening? Why is the traditional law firm model struggling to answer this open goal for Benfica or Oporto to score? And apologies for any sporting fans, because I'm not going to talk about sporting today. Lexington advises 4 or 5 law firms a year where certain partners have a challenge around their practice area where a lot of their work is being standardized. We know how to solve it, and we know that the capital investment required, those partners find it difficult to persuade their colleagues to take a strategic view and bet on the technology required. Commercial lease negotiation, the whole area of IP practices and how things need to be standardized, finance, small claims, you will know this. And looking specifically at Portugal, you just have to look at businesses like Galp or EDP, who will have between 3, 4 or 5 million euros of business ready, willing and open for people that can provide the standard service in the right way using technology. Now, why is this failing? And Mary, I now know who to blame, because I was just heard your title at Oric was the profitability manager. What a wonderful title. Now, I advise law firms on performance management. Law firms will look at short-term income over long-term sustainability and profit, okay? Income, not profit, short-term, not long-term. We often talk about billable hours, and lawyers work on billable hours targets. And if you're going to invest time in relationships, what does that mean in terms of your billable time? And what to do about that capital investment. And when I talk about capital investment to partners and law firms, I have to look around the room and try and guess how old they are. Anyone who's 35 and wants to have a 30-year career in their law firm that they find enjoyable knows they need to invest in technology. And anyone who's 55 or 60 is hoping they can retire and head for the door before any of that investment is required. And of course, Portuguese tax law isn't to help either, because you have to distribute all of the profits every year. You're not able actually to hold back those profits and invest in research and development. So a large number of firms, we do use the word firm, but we have to understand it's really a group of individuals working with my clients and my work. So that cultural change is an important part. And really, the question is going forward, what are people going to do about this? We have had examples. Matilde, I'll give you some good news. You know Neville Eisenberg at BLP. He set up Lawyers on Demand. He came and spoke about it at the Bestana Palace with us 10 years ago. Lawyers on Demand was such a success. The partners found it difficult. It had to become a separate business organization. And finally, it was spun out and sold externally. So law firms can innovate, but they find it difficult to stay within their own organization, and they have to move it outside. If you were to ask me who's innovating, I would say John Croft, and he's at Elevate. Elevate isn't a law firm, it's an alternative business provider. I can see you nodding your head, Matilde. We've helped private equity houses try and find law firms to buy in order to do new law, but in all of the occasions we've introduced them to law firms, they've said, actually, let's not get a law firm and bash it into shape to do new law. Let's start and build something from the beginning with people that are part of a corporation and don't have any of those partner, non-partner, lawyer, non-lawyer issues. Why should this be the top of the agenda for every law firm in Portugal today? And for those people participating, you have a legal reform ahead. You have a government who are going to allow these non-lawyers to practice, and you have organizations like the Big Four that do all of this disaggregation of legal services exceptionally well. So while I would have said to you 5 years ago there was an opportunity for the major Portuguese law firms to do this well, I have to say that today, with this legal reform on the horizon, standing still is not an option. If you don't bring about this change in your own law firm, somebody else will do it. And guess what? My point of conclusion, Matilde, then I'll pass back to you. The people I see using innovation and technology well is the clients. They're going directly to providers and they're doing it by themselves. So there's a trick being missed by law firms. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Moray. I guess we have a lot to think about after your presentation, and we will definitely do so. But first of all, I would like to welcome Ben and to share his views. I guess McKenzie has been innovating and has a great program called Reinvent that Ben will talk us about. Ben, Richard Susskind often uses the expression new look law firms. Do you think Baker McKenzie is a new look law firm? And what can you tell us about your Reinvent program? And what have you been doing for your clients? Could you share a little bit of that with us?
Thanks, Matilde, and I'd be happy to, and thanks, Moray. starting with Richard Susskind and me is often a dangerous tactic, because I have some fairly strong views on Richard's analysis of the legal market. And, in short, I agree with the end point that Richard has in place, but I do think that timing and the market dynamics are something which aren't quite reflected in the reality of the markets that certainly Baker McKenzie operates in and our clients operate in. And I think that's the purpose of what we're trying to do with reInvent, is to figure out how the market can change. It's not just about changing one law firm or two law firms. It's not just about changing one client or two clients. If you're going to get to fundamental change, it's a wider ecosystem issue, because what we hear from clients is, please stop talking about technology. And I think that is the fundamental practice for failing of this whole conversation around legal innovation. What we're talking about is, where do corporations, in my world, obviously individuals are procurers of services, but in my world, it's big corporations, where do they need legal services? And then how do you deliver those legal services in a way where the value and cost line up, right? And those two things are where we're at. It's not about use legal tech because I want something that's delivered via a tech platform. It's how do I achieve outcomes, and which bits of human plus machine plus process get me to the best result that balances risk, costs, and speed. Really, those are the dynamics that are happening. So you asked me, is Baker McKenzie a new look law firm? My answer to that is not yet. I think it's on the path to getting there, but the reality is that 95% of our revenue still comes from business as usual law. And that's what keeps the lights on, to be perfectly frank, and pays my partners and pays me. And it would be irresponsible to throw that out the window. That's not a good business decision at all. But there is a realization that the market has to change. The market will change. That change is inevitable. And so what we're trying to do is break that down into digestible chunks that we can implement. And for us, it has 5 parts. So the first part of reInvent is an infrastructure strategy. How do you build a digitized infrastructure for a law firm in 2021? And that's everything from a cloud strategy. How do you get your data into the cloud? Which bit should be in the cloud? Which bit should not be in the cloud? To the technology tools that you need to do that, and the data architecture to do that. And that's taken us 5 or 6 years, but I think we're broadly there now on the data architecture that we need. It's not easy for a firm like ours. If I take one jurisdiction, I actually don't know the rules in Portugal because we don't have an office there. But if you take Switzerland, we are not allowed to put any of our data in the cloud in Switzerland because of Swiss bar rules. So when you're trying to build a global architecture for delivering legal services, that creates a challenge and a block, and you multiply that out by multiple jurisdictions. It's difficult, but that's a core part of reInvent. The second element of our program is new services. And so these are typically non-legal services, be they alternative legal services when it comes to contract lawyers, when it comes to e-discovery and data analytics. Moray, you said, why aren't law firms using Luminance? My challenge to you is lots of them are, and lots of them are using other products which do the same thing as well. And so, we are is the answer to that. Service design. So we're investing in building the capability to do design thinking around services and build out that skill set both internally and with clients. And legal project management, obviously. Those pieces are important to deliver end-to-end legal services in a new way. The third is where I'm first going to mention sort of technology, which is new capabilities. Yes, you've needed to enhance the skill set that people have. And some of the technologies, Moray, you mentioned are important. I think some more important on the client side than necessarily on the law firm side. But you do need that stack of technology that people have access to. I think the core thing there that we need to change is the mindset about how you access that. I think we need to give our lawyers more freedom to experiment rather than pushing enterprise tech to them, which is standardized. Because I think particularly big law firms, but clients are all different. You need to use things in slightly different ways. And so you need to loosen the controls slightly and give your lawyers an opportunity to work with the tech. And then the last two for us is new skills. And so we're investing a lot in, trying to find fun ways for people to do things differently. And that does tend to be the younger generations, the younger partners, the younger associates, the younger business professionals that are in our business. We don't use the word non-lawyers. It's banned in our business. We use business professionals for the rest of our team, but we're a firm of 15,000 people, of whom only 6,000 are lawyers now. Now that shows you how the business is changing. And then the final piece for our program is our moonshot program. Most of the opportunities now, I don't think are truly that innovative, if I'm honest, right? They are about doing what we do now, but doing it better, quicker, faster, cheaper, and delivering better value. But there is a really important piece of true innovation, in my view, which is, what are we going to do tomorrow? And that's the piece where we put our moonshot investments. And one of the ones people may have seen that we've done recently is investing in building out a machine learning practice in partnership with a company called Spark Beyond. That is experimental. But it's important not only for the business logic, the investment, we're investing, we're taking risk, we're hoping it brings us a return, but I think also for signaling an ambition both to our internal people and to our clients that we are trying to do something different. There is a culture change piece to why we're doing something like that, beyond the actual sort of ROI on the investment itself that we're seeking to get. So I think those things all come together for our program. How's the market reacting it? How are people reacting to it? I would say it's mixed. Anyone who's ever done change management or innovation knows that you're never going to convince everyone. There's plenty of people who think that at one end it's marketing hype and nothing's really changing, and there's plenty of people who think that tomorrow the world's going to completely change, and both those are not true. So it is a mixed reaction, but there are enough people to give us enough momentum to keep going and just put one step in front of the other. And I think that's the lesson I've learned over the last 5 years, is the big bang. It may come during my career, it may not come during my career, I don't know. But all you can do is put one step in front of the other, make the sensible incremental changes you can make, and keep momentum, and hopefully that speeds up over time.
Great, Ben. I hope you keep up with that momentum. Many thanks for sharing all of that very relevant information. I took a lot of notes here on what should we be doing with our innovation programs internally. Anyway, Mary, picking up on what Maurice said about document assembly and document navigation, I was walking around your website and you have a sentence that says that legal teams should be doing legal work, not paperwork. So could you share a little about what solutions can you point out to reduce the number of hours legal teams spend doing paperwork? And what has been your contribution to make this document assembly and navigation easier a reality now?
Yeah, sure. Thank you first for having me here. It's just a great conversation. I kind of feel like I just want to sit back and listen to Moray and Ben battle it out about the future of law firms. It's been really, really great. So so I've now worked, at a law firm, in an in-house department, and now at a legal tech company. And so much of my career in all those roles has been focused on legal operations, right? That's the business of law, and how do you optimize the business of law? And I've said over those years that so much of what I've done in the past is around this idea of what I call right sourcing. And that is the idea, really of matching the resources of your department or your firm with the right work, looking at the right value of work, right, matching it with the people or the resources at the right level. So when you're an in-house professional, right, what are you sending to outside counsel? What are you sending to like your most biggest partner outside counsel versus, a smaller, lower cost firm versus a law company versus doing it in-house? What is done by a business professional? What is done by technology and automation? And so, the point of all that is that we know that lawyers are really expensive, right? And so we want them in a firm, in a department, to spend their time doing that high value strategic work. Moray talked about that, right? But in reality, where are they spending a lot of their time? Well, we know that it is lost time doing a lot of inefficient processes, right? Recreating the wheel, working in silos, not collaborating. And so I recently joined a company called Ironclad, because I really believe in the product and the vision of this company. It is what we now term in the industry a CLM, that stands for Contracts Lifecycle Management Software, essentially software that helps get contracts done. And I think this is critically important to every single business on earth, right? Big, small, any industry. any place in the world, because contracts really contain the most important information and data that a company has, and yet we haven't sort of unlocked that information. We haven't used contracts in the way that I think they were originally intended to be used, and they've become increasingly complex to manage. So while a business contract can tell the entire story about a business's revenue, obligations, operations, risk profile, but as we know, many of us who touch contracts in different ways, we're still using this old process, and we lack systems and tools to help us scale, to help us accelerate the rest of the business. So what happens is contracts is actually slowing things down. And this is exactly the problem that Ironclad and many other CLMs are trying to solve. So our mission is to really power the world's contracts. And Ironclad is a digital contracting platform, and it helps companies do three things really easily that I'll touch on just very, very quickly, which are to create and speed up your contracts, understand them, and control them. So create and speed up, right? As CLM like Ironclad, we use workflow automation, there's intelligence, clients can kind of get self-service, they can get the templates, they can get the contracts they need where that's applicable. They can help the lawyers facilitate the drafting, the negotiations of the contract. You can accept a contract through a legally binding method, be it e-signature or click wrap, but essentially it's all those things that Moray talked about, right? Workflow automation, document assembly, self-service, legal intake, tracking the status, knowing where things are, all those things that are currently missing from our broken process are the areas that we can help create and speed up. And then there's kind of two other areas that I think CLM can really help an organization. One is understanding, right? I said there's so much data and information in those contracts that companies have really never unlocked. And so, I know in my experience, when we had to quickly search or find something or report something on our contracts, we'd look around and go, oh, let's start reading, right? We got to go dig through all of our contracts because we execute them and we essentially put them into boxes, whether it's a virtual box or sometimes even a physical box, but you need to be able to quickly search, find, and report on your contracts. And so by this whole method of what we call digital contracting, you're essentially turning your contract from a piece of paper or a document into really structured data, and that makes it accessible and useful and sort of scalable for your future. And then the third area that I think we can really help benefit contracts is controlling contracts. So as we all know, like I said earlier, we all touch them, right? And so many different people and parts of the company are getting their hands in contracts and getting involved. And so when so many groups are involved, you've got to put some measures around how are you controlling your process? How are you controlling your templates? How are you controlling the language? How do you ensure there's compliance around how you want to sign, review, and execute your contracts? And then how do you mitigate your business risk? And so having a system in place is going to be able to help you ensure that you're getting, let's say, the appropriate approvals for each contract, and depending on the size or the type that it is. How do you manage your access to the data? Who can see what? How are you monitoring for like non-standard language? Let's say your business user is putting language in that you haven't approved of. How are you going to catch that? And so you want to make sure you're not exposing your company to future risk. And then now more, the world has gotten more complicated, and there's so many more regulations to keep track of and keep on top of. And so it's important that you also have systems that help you meet those regulations. Sometimes you might have to, ensure that your revenue recognition is being, kind of reported in the right ways and things of that nature. So having a system can help you, again, create, speed up, understand, and control your contracts. So it's an area that I'm very excited about. And I think there's so much potential for where we want to go as not just a legal industry, but as businesses start to rethink how to use contracts.
Exciting times, Mary. I'm looking forward to find out more of what Ironclad is doing. Moray, now that you told us about what we could do better, and having heard what Baker McKenzie is doing and what Ironclad as a legal tech is doing, from your work with law firms and your involvement in projects such as Law Without Walls, Is there anything out there really groundbreaking and inspiring that you have been seen working and could you also share with us today?
Yeah, no, fantastic. Well, thank you to Ben and Mary. I'm now feeling much more optimistic than I was when we started. So thank you so much. Ben, I love the human plus machine plus process. I mean, that is the question really. And I didn't mean badly about luminance. I'm talking to you today from Madrid. 5 law firms have licenses and 5 law firms are not seeing the benefit and may not continue with the licenses. They're not spending the time understanding, practicing and working with clients and what it needs. I think it's 3 law firms in Lisbon that have luminance that are failing the opportunity there. And if a lot of law firms across continental Europe have due diligence tools they can support clients with, why are they still using junior lawyers to do that work? But I have to say, Matilde, if I'm going to give an award for innovation, I'm going to scrap what I was going to tell you, and I'm going to look to Mary. I've heard you speak many times, Mary. It's been a pleasure hearing you speak over the years. I'm going to sign up to Ironclad because you have about 80 or 90% of what the in-house lawyers are looking for. And I don't know whether the clients will come to you or whether we go to Ben and whether Ben will be providing Ironclad. You can tell us that later, okay? You can save us to the end. In terms of innovation, Matilde, this will sound very old-fashioned to you. It's really about finding out from a client the size of all of their legal services and how to take on all of that work and how to disaggregate it internally. And that will sound, we used to call that the Thames water model, as you remember, where the law firm will try and take on a wider range of legal services from a law firm. That's typically at the big firm level. And at the small firm level, I don't want to give away too many secrets. You do have 2 or 3 law firms in Portugal that are working on, I don't want to call it Contract Express. It won't be as sophisticated as what Mary's doing, but there are firms at the moment working on these type of products that will hit the market next year. So thank you to both of you for making me feel much more optimistic about the future. Ben, it's not going to be a big bang, is it? And maybe if people could start using some of the technology that's already available. Matilde, can we ask Ben and Mary what the magic sauce is, how to change attitudes of lawyers and how to get them to use some of this stuff? Do you mind if we ask them that?
Definitely.
Ben, what about you first? You're a partner in a law firm. You're a convert, of course, but how do you get your colleagues to start using some of the kit that you invest and buy for them?
Well, to be honest, by making mistakes as to how I tried originally is the honest answer. I mean, anyone will tell you, and we're no different, that the change management process is the hard bit. The technology is easy, which is why I try and avoid talking about technology. But the core thing is you need to show, not tell. And people need to learn on the job. There's no point putting out 1,000 training sessions to say, here's how to use this whiz-bang new piece of kit. Most people won't do them. If they do them, they won't actually then use the kit until 6 months later when they've forgotten it. It'll just get frustrated, and they'll never take it up. What we did, which has had good success, it's not ideal, but it's where we started to make progress, is we set up a program. We call them our Reinvent Ambassadors, but effectively an opt-in process for people who are interested in what's going on under the tent in the technology department or in the innovation teams or in our service design teams. You do get the all company emails that go out with news, but again, most people don't read that. So this was set up on Workplace. We have an internal instance of Workplace, which is Facebook for Enterprise, for those that don't know that. So it's just like Facebook, where people could join groups, basically. And so one of the ones we set up was Reinvent. We didn't have anything to join, we didn't even advertise it. We now have 1,246 people who have signed up, of which the mix is about 5% partners. So it's not a huge part of our partnership, but it is a 15,000 person organization. So it's a decent chunk of our populace who are signed up. And what we do is advocate for those people to work within their teams to show how the various technologies or new processes could bring benefits to their particular teams, be that an M&A team in Madrid or a investigations team in Bogota. They're quite specific rather than trying to drive it from the top, which works for most practices. There are some practices like international M&A, where you do need to drive from the top, and there are opportunities because it is more standardized already. But that would be my core thing. Certainly in a partnership structure, the tell and drive from the top model doesn't work, and actually is counterproductive, because the technology becomes a barrier to people doing their work, and so it becomes a friction point that doesn't help them. It hinders them because we're asking them to change. And for me, the holy grail is, developing processes and ontologies that morph to the way lawyers work. Lawyers have a value, right? The legal skill set has a value, but it does mean that value is partially driven by the way they train, the way they think, the way they look at risk. And in the innovation conversation, we service industry, but actually there's a reason it's developed that way, and there's a value to businesses, a value to clients, if that skill set and those characteristics can be deployed in different ways. And so the key for me is figuring out, how do you morph the systems and the processes to leverage that skill set, rather than try and change the people. I think it's quite hard to change the skill set, because actually you want to keep that. It has a value. And so that's the ultimate challenge. And, there is no, I'm not going to say there's a magic sauce. It's not perfect. But in my world, every time I see something as simple as somebody doing, setting up a collaboration space on Miro so that a team can work together, and when they get on a call, they show up their Miro board so I can see it. That's progress, right? Because that wouldn't have happened 2 years ago or 3 years ago at Baker McKenzie. If the person doing that is a 60-year-old, grey-haired, white male, even better, right? Because that shows you're getting into a demographic and a community that is particularly hard to crack in that thing. And then the other piece, before I hand over to Mary, is not only do you need to show people, let them try, you do need 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 sort of your highest profile business leaders, be they on the professional services side or on the partner side, doing it that way. So if your leadership is inherently conservative, if your leadership is not doing things differently, then the organization won't follow. If you can persuade your biggest M&A rainmaker to do her deals differently, not only do her associates notice, but the partner sitting alongside her notice and say, well, she's doing it, it must be something in it, because she wouldn't do it otherwise. So I do give a lot of sort of velvet glove treatment to some of those people in our business to help them. So I wouldn't ask that person to self-serve. I would do and ask my team to do everything for that person, because I want everyone else self-serving once they see the benefits of what can happen.
Awesome. Should I respond? Yeah, thanks. I think Ben touched on a lot of the things that I would say already. And in particular, it's the idea that people are always asking me kind of like what the skill set is needed for lawyers of the future. What do we need to be training them on? And Ben said it, it's not a skill set shift, right? In my view, it's actually a mindset shift that needs to happen. We need people to understand that the status quo, the way we've always done things, is no longer the acceptable path forward, right? Businesses are moving faster. The world is changing. Regulations are getting tougher. We need to speed up. We need to keep up. And it is irresponsible for us to just keep adding headcount and money and budget to the problem. We have to think about what are the real problems that need to be diagnosed, and focus our efforts in changing in the right place, right? So there's a lot of innovation. There's a lot of technology flooding the space. And I think oftentimes, you might get a GC or a leader at the law firm who's really interested and passionate and or tasked with that. And they're going around saying, we've got to innovate, we've got to use technology, but really you got to start with the people and process, right? What are the problems that we want to solve? What is the actual, impact that tooling or technology can have on the business? I've often said to legal operations team members that I was training at Google, the first lesson is to not listen to the lawyers, don't listen to the clients. When they ask you for something, don't do as you're told. And what I mean by that is we don't often know what the answer is, right? You often have to sort of be shown the future, shown the way, because we're just all not that creative enough to kind of think like we've been doing this the same way for 100 years. I have an idea about how to do it better, and this is what it is. And like we said, technology is not that it's just one piece of the solution. And so you've really got to figure out what the problems are, and then work backwards to figure out how can we change those. And as you kind of identify the issues and the challenges that are out there, I think the next challenge you find, as we've also talked about, is there's so many options now for everything, right? There's so much investment. There's a proliferation of tools and technology. Everyone says they've got the best thing. And that very range of choice is also an obstacle to success. So then, you kind of get paralyzed by like, how do I move forward? There's so many things to do. There's so many priorities. There's so many different technologies that we need. And that's where I believe that the power of community and the power of the wisdom of the crowd is so important. That's been a big part of my life in building Clock and now being a chief community officer at Ironclad. I think tech is just one part of it, but innovation should not be an individual sport. Like if you're not talking to other people, you're not engaging, you're missing the most powerful tool, right? That's in the innovator's arsenal, is learning how other people are doing it. And the crowd is going to help accelerate innovation in our field, because we can't live in a bubble. We can't, experiment on our own. We have to stay on top of what others are doing and learn from them and learn from their mistakes. And you'll find others are really open and interesting to share. And what I love about this whole change management thing is that we're talking about lawyers who we all know are incredibly competitive, right? And so if you hear one law firm is doing all these amazing things and they're scalable and they've, got great work-life balance because their lawyers are focused on the right things, trust me, every other law firm is going to start paying attention and going, I want some of what they've got, right? And so that's another way, is looking around and making someone else look like a hero and saying, hey guys, we got to be like that, or we're going to be dinosaurs. And then the third piece is the adoption, right? We talked about change management and how do you get people to use what you have? You've decided on a software, you want to get out there. And as Ben said, technology should be the easy part. Once you've kind of got people around, you shouldn't have to have this entire change management program that's like, here's this technology, we must get you to use it, please, please, please use it. And oftentimes in my experience, we've done that. We've showed people software and it's so clunky and difficult to use that our lawyers are immediately like, forget it, I'm not going to do those 10 clicks. I'm going to do things my old way. Like everyone else can use it, I'm not going to. And then you've spent all this money and time and energy putting in technology that no one's going to use. And so, one of the reasons I joined a software company that I think does really focus on user interface and experience is because the software and tech companies have a responsibility too. And so we have to make exactly that, right? The technology has to be the easy part, and that's our responsibility. We can't change people, we can't change your processes, but we've got to make it easy for you to pick the software and put it in place, show your users, and for them to have that aha moment where they go, oh, this is so much better. Of course, I'm going to use this. Of course, I understand how to use it. And of course, this is better than the old way. When you show them technology and say, here are all the benefits, but it's going to make your life miserable, nobody's going to come.
Yeah, no one wants to make their life miserable, but at the end, a lot of technology we put in front of them, it's complicated at the beginning. Definitely a very useful tip. Again, Ben, we heard Mary here saying that there's a lot of things out there, and one of the things that makes our life complicated is exactly the amount of things, and that we don't collaborate enough between companies and firms, and to make our lives easier and share what's been going on and what's really good to use. You have recently announced a partnership with an Israeli startup, Spark Beyond, I think, for the development of your own technological tools. Could you tell us a little bit about that? And do you think this is the way to go forward, not doing it ourselves and partnering with startups that know exactly what they're doing? We heard about collaboration. Is this the way?
Yeah, thanks, Matilde. I mean, I mentioned that we have a limb of our strategy, which is based around moonshots, and our partnership with Spark Beyond is one of those. But I'm going to start 5 years ago. So when the legal innovation conversation sort of really took on heat, everyone was talking about robot lawyers and AI changing the world. And I, as Mary knows, we've been on panels together, I was one of the skeptics saying, let's just calm down here, because actually it's really hard to do this stuff well. and the technology is incredible, but it's not quite there yet to do what clients need it to do just yet. So again, back to Richard Susskind, it will happen. There is no doubt that machine learning and AI and big data analytics is going to impact the practice of law, and so it should, but it's not going to happen overnight. And so what's happened in that last 5-year time period, we, like other law firms, this is not a uniquely Baker McKenzie thing, focused on application-specific deployments of those sorts of technologies. So whether it be luminance, e-discovery, investigations, areas where there are opportunities, to buy application-specific machine learning capabilities. What our partnership with Spark Beyond is about is something different. We've in parallel been trying to figure out a path to say, well, how do you bring that skill set of data science, machine learning, and combine it with legal domain expertise to deliver services themselves, not just to deliver the stuff we're doing now in a better, more efficient way, but how can we deliver something new? And we talk to all the big AI providers. We talk to lots of startups. We ran a startup engagement program. We still run a startup technology engagement program. We discovered two things. On the big end, actually, law is quite a small industry. It's a big industry for all of us, but in the greater scheme of things, finance, healthcare, industrials are much more attractive for the big players than professional services, and then law is a subset of professional services. And so lots of the offerings there were too standardized or just not cost effective for businesses that, even the biggest law firms in the world are $2-3 billion businesses, but in the greater scheme of things, the investment you need is too big to play at the big end. At the startup end, the startups were too small. We were too big an organization for them to really be able to engage with us, to provide us with the first and second level support we needed, to do the hand holding all the way through. And so we for several years danced around this idea. And we found a partner which we're really excited about, which is somebody who's not a startup. They're established, they've got big contracts with big corporations. They've only got 700 people, and mostly, they were interested in doing something in the legal vertical. They didn't know what, and we didn't know what we wanted them to do. And so what we're building is a practice, a machine learning legal practice, not a product and not technology. I don't think law firms are places to build technology. We can't compete for the talent you need to do it properly. So we want to get the technological expertise from outside, but we want to build some of the data science expertise inside, and the data architecture expertise, and the people who are closest to the assets that we have, the data, the lawyers, the clients, those pieces we want to be in-house, and we want to have access to technological tools and partners who can help us experiment with those and see what's possible, to Mary's point about those tools. So this project for us is it's actually not interested at all in contract lifecycle management or automation or efficiency gains. The market will do that. ALSPs will deliver that. Technology companies will deliver that, and we will buy that stuff when it comes out. What we're trying to focus on with this partnership is saying, where in decision-making in companies does machine learning plus data plus lawyers lead to a better decision? And actually, if we can do a better decision, and we can do it faster and with more accuracy, I might well be coming to clients and saying, and we're going to charge you more for it because it's more valuable, right? It's high end. That's where we want to play. And obviously, if we can then combine that across the insights we get from that activity across multiple client sets, we can start sort of snowballing that, because actually what you're bringing to the clients is, what does a firm of 15,000 people know, not what does Ben Allgrove, one lawyer sitting in London, know? And that's where we're really trying to get it. So we call that machine learning enabled judgment. One of the co-founders we've recruited to lead reInvent, who's one of the people who started Watson Legal at IBM and was at Elevate Moray. So he's left Elevate to come to us. If you ask Brian why a law firm, and he's saying because what he didn't have at IBM and at Elevate was the lawyers. That's the bit he was missing. And so our project here is to say, okay, where's that sweet spot? It's where the lawyers combine with what the technology companies and their LSPs are trying to deliver. Will it work? I have no idea, but my partners have given me a 3-year runway to try and prove it will work. And that's the exciting part right now for me.
I'm sure it will work, but we'll keep up with that for the next years, okay? And try to have you back here in a couple of years to tell us more about how it's working. Mary, Also, you at Ironclad, we heard that you made a partnership with Google Cloud AI. Can you tell us more what's the importance of this kind of synergies, not only the one between you and Google, but in a broader way? Do you think there's an opportunity for the legal sector to be partners with big tech companies that surely have much more experience and deep pockets than we do? What's your view on this?
Yeah, that's exactly right. As you said, and both as Ben said as well, right? AI is all the rage. Everybody wants it. Everyone wants to talk about it. And I mean, I'm personally a big believer that AI will revolutionize the way we practice law, but it's going to take time and we're not there yet. So our chief technology officer has been really intentional about the way we use AI, because it has to be really ready and it has to be truly good enough quality for us to put our name on it. And so particularly when it comes to contracts or legal work, right, in general, there's a risk of getting it wrong, and that risk is big. And when it comes to training your AI and making it very accurate for contracts, it's actually very, very difficult. And that's because it requires a ridiculous amount of data that's necessary for training, and then tons and tons of computing power, which is also incredibly expensive, right? You mentioned the deep pockets. Well, every time you hit that button to train the data, it is very, very expensive, requires a lot of investment and computing power. And so we, like Ben said, we could invest, we could try to do this ourselves, but we believe there's actually going to probably be 3 big players in the world of AI, just generally in the future, who have the data and the resources to do it well, to do it right, and to keep doing it, to keep it up to date. And those are Google, Amazon, Microsoft, right? So we've chosen to partner with Google's Contract Doc AI because their AI is the best in the world. We feel good about the quality. They've invested a lot of time and money into it, and we can put our name behind it. So we're going to use Google's technology to apply AI to contracts in the way that we think is useful and impactful to our customers. And many other software companies have leveraged their own AI or built their own, but frankly, I just don't think anyone's going to have the resources, the data, or the power, the computing power, or AI capabilities that someone like Google can have now. And more importantly, as I mentioned, just continue to have, because whatever AI we have today is already outdated. You have to keep investing at the highest levels to keep up. And really only these big companies are going to have the resources to do that, at least for now.
Yeah, exactly. Moray, and you, what about law firms? We have been seeing this trend where a lot of law firms are betting in startups, others are acting as incubators. What's your opinion? Is it working? Have you seen any great success story, or should we be following the Ironclad strategy?
Well, thank you. Yeah, so I want to invest. Mary, I wondered why you left Google. Now I know why. I want to invest in Ironclad, or I invest in Ben and I wait and see whether Ben's innovation will stay within a law firm or whether Ben is spinning that out in 3 years with private equity funding. Because Ben, you're so right about Elevate. Elevate need the lawyers, but I think they might be a magnet for talent based on what our research is telling us about lawyers and the lifestyle issues that lawyers want at the moment. If Elevate can attract the talent you have, I think that would be a game changer. In terms of what I'm seeing, I have to say I'm seeing a lot of what I call innovation by press release. When we do surveys, there's 3 law firms that in-house lawyers will highlight innovation. They'll always talk about Dentons and Nextlaw. They'll talk about Baker McKenzie. So congratulations to you, Ben. And they'll talk about Eversheds. When we talk to lawyers in Portugal, there's the 2 or 3 firms that they always talk about. But I still think, sorry to pass it back to you, Matilde, but I still think that it is really a space to watch, that we're not really seeing a lot of innovation here in continental Europe. Definitely nothing along the lines of what Ben and Mary have been telling us about.
So there's still space for us to differentiate ourselves, whatever the firm or the business, and do more. We were talking about investment and the money and the need to have pockets or not. I'd like to go back to you, Ben, and ask you, is it really necessary to have a big financial investment? Or in your opinion, do you think is it possible to innovate with a low budget? And have you had a real example of an innovation with a low budget?
I think it depends on what you're talking about if you say innovation. So innovation requires investment, and whether that's time or out of pocket cost can vary depending on what you're trying to do. But I don't think it is realistic to talk about innovation and change without accepting that it's an investment. It's an investment of resource, time, energy, effort. So I think the honest answer to your question is no, I don't think low budget innovation, doing it on the cheap, is actually a viable strategy for true change. I think you need strategic business decisions which say we're going to change. And then you need to figure out what investments you need to make to get there. And, you know, I have that, I'm the Chief Innovation Officer at Baker McKenzie. My job is to advocate for this. But I come up against my CFO who says, how much money do you want, Ben? And I come up with my partners who say, I need to bill, and I'm told I can't hire more people. So my lawyers need to work because I've got a pipe of work coming through the door that needs to be executed. You can't have them, Ben, for your projects. That's the daily reality. And that, for me, says it is a money and a time equation around it. Having said that, I think if you get some of the culture pieces right and create an environment where your line lawyers and business professionals see it as part of their job to constantly ask, could we do this better? Then you'll get those micro changes that you can then pick up and invest in to scale. And so I think some of the opportunity spotting, the idea generation really is about empowering and making it real to people at the front lines that we want to do things differently. Things aren't locked in stone, and we're not going to do everything. But if you come up with a good idea, surface it and we'll take it. Yeah, I think you can do that through culture change and you know, incentivizing the right types of behavior in your current structures and with your current investment mechanisms. I'm not one of those fans. We haven't run a big innovation competition with, you know, give us your ideas about how you're going to change. And the reason I'm not a fan of those is actually you end up disappointing 99.9% of the people who come forward with their big ideas. I'd much prefer to have you know, a cultural shift from the top, which says it's part of your day job to improve the way we do things. And you can do that using tools that are made available to you, great. And if you've got a bigger idea that requires different tools, here's who you talk to. There are touch points that are charged with listening to your ideas. And you know what? We're probably not going to do 9 out of 10 of those. Why? Because they don't make sense or not right for us, or we don't have the money to invest in them at this point in time. But it's part of your job to keep surfacing those ideas. And that's where I think you can get low budget innovation, because that's the micro steps I talked about, the one step forward. That's how you get there.
Thank you. It's all about culture. Everything is always all about culture. Mary, as a trendsetter in this law and tech ecosystem, and having worked also in law firms previously, and since we're coming to the end of this wonderful chat, do you have any tip, any provocation you would like to share with our audience? Where should we start? What should we be thinking about doing next?
Yeah, I think I touched on this a little bit in the earlier question, right? The 3 parts, which I think is start by diagnosing what the real problem is, leaning on the crowd, right? Finding your community, talking to others, and then finding a software that makes adoption and user experience that the easy part for you. Interestingly, and I just was thinking about this, over the last couple months, I've seen a lot of firms, you know, reaching out to me, reaching out to Ironclad, who are interested in learning more about contracts lifecycle management, right? About CLM, and either learning about it for themselves because they're realizing that their client intake and engagement letters is getting out of control, but also learning about it for their clients because their clients are coming to them and saying, I would love your advice and what should I use and how do I do this? And so I just want to take a moment and commend you for that, because that is actually the real kind of innovation and investments my old hat, right? We clients and legal departments are looking for from our law firms. So I've, in my experience, this is not even a joke. I've had clients tell me, hey, we're so innovative, we've developed our own cryptocurrency. Like, but why does the client want you to have your own cryptocurrency? Like, that's great. I'm glad you're so technically savvy, but for real, like, how does that help me as a client? We as clients want to know, how are you as a law firm investing to improve your internal infrastructure, right? Not just like being able to sell us more services that use AI, but how are you getting better? How are you leveraging the work that you have from your past clients? How are you leveraging the work that's done by other attorneys in the practice, right? Remembering, as I think it was Moore who said, we're a firm, but it's really a bunch of individuals. So how do we get people to collaborate more, to leverage the group's knowledge, and to really spend time on the right things? And so for those firms that are looking at, again, internal improvements, infrastructure improvements that are about their own way of doing work and having lawyers focus on the right thing, I think that's fantastic. That's the right way to go. And then just another quick thought, on Ben's question and the budget, I think, I would love to challenge firms and departments to not be afraid to embrace bigger change. I think as we go about, we all say there's low-hanging fruit, there's small things that we can do to make things better that don't involve a lot of investment, that don't involve rocking the boat and making people change the way they're doing things. But there is much more opportunity, and most legal organizations, whether you're an in-house team or a law firm, are in dire need of massive disruption. And so, it's not going to happen overnight. We've talked about the step changes that need to take place, but think big, right? And it doesn't mean it has to be a rocky road. If you're thinking through, again, finding the software that has a good, user adoption, that the process is so much better than the old way, people will come. And we've done that so much in our consumer lives, in our personal lives, where we're not afraid of massive changes to the way we've always done things, right? Think of all the technology that we use in our personal life, whether it's, the way we watch TV now, which is not like the old way, the way we record videos, the way we, have our cell phones. Those were massive changes that if you told someone in a business setting seem like, oh my God, how are we ever going to get people around it? But we do it without even being asked in our personal lives, because we show people the new way is so much better. And if we can do that in our business world, in our legal organizations, just the future will be so bright. And I think that there is a way to do it that is not scary and intimidating, that does cause real impact and real disruption.
Excellent. So we have to embrace massive disruption. That's a great call. Just before passing on to Moray with my final question, that will be more of a provocation than a question. I think we can't forget that we have just been going through one of the worst times of the last decades, and in some countries we still are. So I would like to end my conversation with Ben, asking you about this. How have you coped with this pandemic? And is there anything you changed or you learned in your program? And what was the impact of this pandemic year?
So I'm going to make a controversial statement, which is, for what I'm trying to achieve in a law firm, the pandemic was a good thing. And that I know is not to belittle the suffering that it has caused other people, but it's had two effects on my business. One is, we deployed Zoom and remote working in 6 days globally for 15,000 people. That forced a different way of communicating within our business. So we had video conferencing for years. We had collaboration tools for years, but we instantly had to get there. And it was no longer a question of trying to convince people it was better. It was necessary. That is going to have effects going forward on all our other change management programs, because the use case we have the use case, we have the proof in the pudding that it can happen fast, and it can be transformative. And so that is one benefit I will take out of this. And the others is it made the business case for us for something which is, not in the core of this conversation around technology, but I think it's really important to culture change in law firms, which is agile working, and the ability to staff matters from anywhere, the ability to staff them with whatever resource you can get your hands on because you need to deliver it in a disrupted time, and being a bit scrappier about that. But the ability to realize that if we change the way we do things, we can offer people different career paths and different work-life, I hate the word balance, but work-life accommodations. The pandemic has showed us that that is possible. It has downsides as well, right? I'm not going to aside from that. How do you train people? How do you form teams? How do you form the connections and the glue that gets things done? All those things as well. But I think those two things for me provide opportunities for change in my business, which we're going to be utilizing and reaping the benefits of time to come. And then purely financially, we will be reducing floor space, real estate costs. We talk about efficiencies. We talk about the cost of providing legal services. A direct consequence of this is law firms have realized, well, actually, if people are working from home, they don't need as many desks in the office. And that's the second highest cost of any law firm after the people in the law firm. And so I think that will help drive down cost as well in the market.
Thank you, Ben. A positive view on the pandemic. It definitely pushed the agenda for tech and innovation. Moray.
Well, if you look at the positive view on the pandemic, Matilde, and it's to go back to Richard Susskind, we should get paid every time we mention his name, of course. What we've seen over the last year and a half is actually how strong law firms have been. We know that COVID has been a medical issue. It's been a huge tragedy. It's caused a lot of economic turmoil. We've worked with 40 law firms globally throughout this period. The turnover on average is up by 10%, profitability is up on average by 7%. So there's been a huge opportunities for lawyers. Hence, Mary, my challenge to you, where this massive disruption will come from, because I'm not sure what it will be. If we look at Portugal, we have the recovery plan. We know what the economy will look like over the next 3 to 5 years. We know the legal requirements of clients. And we know if law firms can match their ambition and their interest in profitability with certain areas of law, we really know what the future looks like. So I'm struggling a little bit looking for that burning platform. We need to change the way we work to bring that cultural change that Ben is bringing about in Baker McKenzie. There is the scope for low budget innovation, Ben. So I hear you when you say that. I mentioned EDP and Galp. Major Portuguese corporations have a huge amount of work they would like to give law firms if they can get that innovation right. And as I said, we're just really waiting to see what that will be. And we're just very interested. Matilde, to put that back to you, is your law firm going to be the one that's making the play for this innovation space?
I hope we are. I hope we are. We also have a program, an innovation and tech program, an innovation and tech team. I guess we are very focused also on collaboration. I think putting together for the third year this Lisbon Law and Tech is already a disruption on our country and the way we do things. And I guess there's more and more space for collaboration, and we should use these kind of things more and more. I also took some takeaways from today's discussion and tips. But yes, I guess we can expect to see more from Abreu's innovation agenda over the coming years. But Moray, I have a provocation to you to end our conversation, is that imagine you were the head of strategy of a law firm, and you can pick any kind of law firm with deep pockets or low budget, whatever. And you would have one project to choose for the next year. And you had to focus all of your budget and efforts in only one area or one project. What would you choose?
Well, as I was saying, I mean, I spend my days working on strategy with law firms in Lisbon. Wow, I would just have to go for tax. Your government has no money. They need to collect more money. And if anyone could come up with a bit of innovation around tax collection, looking to you, Mary, and you, Ben, I think that's the one area that I'd be very, very interested in. Okay, so the clock is ticking. Well, you know what we could do, Matilde? You have a group of people participating. Let's give them a 24-hour challenge. If anyone could contact me on LinkedIn, come up with a good piece of innovation that they're seeing or working on, they can tell me if it's confidential or not. And in 24 hours, I'll post on LinkedIn what I think is the biggest innovation that I've heard from those responses. And if there is silence, Matilde, you'll know that will be a strong message that maybe people in Portugal aren't focusing on innovation as much as they should. And of course, thank you so much to you and your firm and to Luis for putting this together. As you say, at least putting innovation on the agenda and getting people talking about it, not just lawyers in law firms, but lawyers and clients talking together, that in itself is incredibly valuable. So thank you so much for that.
Don't worry, and I guess we will add to that challenge. We will post it on our LinkedIn, on the IDC Institute Conhecimento LinkedIn, and even we can think about afterwards launching an innovation contest for next year. So this year we'll try to learn from what others have been doing. Please share, and we will make sure that we will get back to you with the greatest things you have been sharing. And next year maybe we can open a contest a few days in advance and try to sponsor any idea or come up with an award. I think this is a great challenge for us. So first of all, and coming to the end, we like to be punctual. I have to thank my guest speakers today. First, Mary, who's in California and woke up and dressed up really early this morning to join us. Thank you, Mary. I can't say enough how useful was this conversation, how insightful, and how excited I am to read and learn everything about Ironclad and become a user ourselves. This was definitely very eye-opening. Thank you very much. Then, besides missing London and having the eager to go back and learn more from you and what have you been doing at reInvent, thank you very much for making the time today. I know how busy you are with your two hats of lawyer and partner, and also the head of the reInvent program. So we couldn't thank you enough. And also for law firms out there, I know we have a lot of in-house lawyers watching us, but also lawyers in private practice. This was very helpful and insightful. Thank you very much. And Moray, you are always all over the place with your teaching classes and also your time in advising law firms and so on. Anyway, we know you love Portugal and you always are keen to join us, but this wasn't even the way because you have to be in Madrid. We're only online. So thank you very much for your time. It's also always a pleasure to have you with us and learn from you. And I hope we can do this in person next year.
Thank you very much, Matilde. You might have heard that IE Law School has opened up a tower here in Madrid, and anyone who's interested, please come and see us in Madrid whenever you can. It'd be a great pleasure to show you around the new IE tower here in the center of Madrid. It'd be a great pleasure to see you.
Oh, we'll do so. We'll do so. Thank you, Moray. So I've wrote and tried to have here some key takeaways that our guests shared with us today, and I'll try to wrap up with some of the takeaways that I wrote for myself. First of all, we heard from Moray what clients are looking for and what do clients want, and clients are looking for easier ways to do onboarding and know your clients. To make this easier, they are worried about document assembly and document navigation. We aren't making enough use of the tech tools we are hiring, such as Luminance and so on. We should be better in gathering and working data, which I guess we are not. That's really. And we should be investing more in R&D, like most of the companies. We heard that it's all about lawyers working together in collaboration with product managers and tech people, and we should be doing more of that. Standardized work and standardized services are an opportunities, so is collaboration and meeting the client's agenda. I think this one is pretty straightforward, but sometimes we do miss it, and we don't focus enough on listening to our clients and finding out what's their agenda. Long-term investments and capital investment in R&D is a must, and we have to put this into the list of priorities. Clients are innovating themselves, and often we are not helping. We have to bet to have an infrastructure strategy. We need new services, technology, and new skills. Legal operations, again, is not a trend anymore. We have to do it, and we have to do it right. The business of law has to be more efficient. We have no other way to go. Contract life cycle management is critical, and to speed up contracts, and also the control we have of our contracts. It's about machines, but it's also about the human and the processes, and we have to get these three right. We need to persuade our rainmakers and leaders to be ambassadors of our innovation. It has to be bottom up, but it also has to be top down, and we have to be, our leaders need to show the way. We heard Mary saying that the status quo is no longer acceptable. We need to speed up and have to focus in change, and we have to change the right way. We need passionate leaders to help us on that. We can't be afraid to embrace major change and massive disruption. And the pandemic, although it was a terrible event, obviously, it made a business case for tech agenda, and this is a very powerful tool, because it showed us that it showed everyone that it is possible, and we have to be open to a world of opportunities. There is no excuse now. So thank you very much to all of you. We have more than 350 people joining us. It is a record, and we couldn't be prouder of this. Thank you also to my colleagues who are behind me, Luís Barreto Xavier, Ricardo Henriques, and Elder Galvão. They are also the other side of Lisbon Law and Tech, and I have to thank them for their help, for their ideas, but also for pushing me every day into be more innovative and to try to be disruptive and think about what can we do differently. So everyone out there, thank you very much for joining, and I hope everyone goes away to their desk with a wish list and wanting to be more disruptive and do things differently. Bye everyone, and I hope to see you tomorrow, where we will have the session on open justice and data-driven courts at 3 p.m. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Bye.